Hey guys, and welcome to an epic battle between myself, the Blind Bandit, leading the forces of the Wood Elves up against Bretonnia, which I'm assuming is named after the giant wolf who will one day swallow Odin whole, but till then he is unfortunately enslaved to fight for the forces of Bretonnia. It'll be a bit more of a chilled video today, not going to be shouting as much as usual. My housemate, or one of my housemates, is sleeping next door. She's got a long day of work tomorrow, so I don't want to raise my voice too much. There may be a little bit lower quality than you're expecting voice-wise, but I will try to keep the energy and the beautiful descriptions as usual. Now, the reason I wanted to showcase this battle today, not only is it awesome in it being very close and a arguably really fun matchup. I think, though the Bretonnian versus Wood Elf matchup has been considered very Bretonnian-favored for a long time, it's one of those matchups which is in the best position it's been in quite some time. And with some new tools that the Wood Elves have received over the years, I think they are not quite on even playing field, but maybe actually they're very close now to being a bit more even up against the Bretonnian forces. But there is a problem. There is a big problem that's going to be going on in this battle, which I'm going to showcase today. I think Creative Assembly, for the most part, has done a really good job ironing out those bugs that we had, kind of dreaded bugs for so long, with like the air effect spells, and nets were also another highlighted big problem. They fixed their effect, they fixed the nets, or did they? Because there's a bit of a net problem in this game, and we're going to look in it in just a second. Before we get then, let's view the builds. So up in the skies, we do have a double Great Eagle, and they're going to be supporting the Glade Lady. Now, the reason I bring in double Great Eagle is I was testing out their prowess in battle. How decent actually were they? Now, they don't hit as hard as Manticores, but they're very swift, still hit relatively hard, and don't rampage. So I was trying to experiment with this kind of wannabe Marathi style of play, but instead going a bit more kite with the Glade Lady and using the Great Eagles to intercept the enemy, snipe casters, and so on and so forth. And it's been working really well, I must admit. I do like this triple Eagle play. The Great Eagle, very fantastic. And the the Glade Lady up in the sky as well, can certainly bring the pain to the enemy. She's coming in with the Prey of Enough Raymer, which is the net we're going to be discussing today. Stops units from moving, and it says they cannot move, which maybe or may not be the case. We also have negative 20% missile resistance and Arrows of Kurnos as well, as one of her items. For our main battle line, it is Eternal Guard dotted all the way along in a nice defensive situation. Basically, just trying to drive the enemy as wide as possible if they want to force their way around us. There's a few gaps, but we have double Glade Riders in the back to intercept any fool who attempts to get onto my beloved juicy back line, which is 4 units today of Glade Guard of Starfire Shafts. They can do a lot of damage, kind of decent armor piercing and fire attacks, very good at taking down enemy knights, and should do a decent job as well up against the peasantry. In the back here, we do have the Loix Tricksters, the War Dancers with Azrai Spears, arguably the most beautiful ladies in the game. They are so badass looking with the tattoos woven up their skin and the double blades to swirl and twirl their dance of death into the heart of any opponent. They do have anti-large, which is the main reason we brought them today. They're melee experts. They are rather squishy. They don't want to take cavalry on unsupported. They're looking to intercept the enemy with the assistance of the double Glade Riders in the back to help protect our Starfire Shaft battle line. We do have a Spell Song of Life as well in the center here, coming in with Dwellers Below, fantastic at killing knights, and Earthblood. For our opponent, it is going to be the glorious Bretonnians. They've gone for a bit of a peasant-themed build, actually. We do have some knights. We'll get to them in a second. The main battle line is Spearmen at Arms and Men at Arms dotted all the way along. It's going nice and wide. Spearmen protecting the flanks, Men at Arms in the front, and then a bucket ton of peasant archers. We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 units of archers. And I think they're a mix of pox arrows, fire arrows, and basic arrows all to boot. And they're pretty scary. They have a bucket ton of fire potential, considering they have 68 models per unit. That's a lot of pain you can bring to some rather squishy elves. Try to capitalize on the elves being relatively squishy. We actually have a load of mounted yeomen, including the Wardens of Montfort here. And yeah, that's some pretty decent range potential. You don't get to see mounted yeomen too much, but they've certainly started to have a bit of a rise in the current meta of the game. Behind them, we have mounted yeomen as well, so no real knights today, at least not on the ground. We do have some up in the sky in the form of double flying paladin, as well as a unit of royal hippogriff knights, looking beautifully fantastic and heroic there in the glorious sunset, as they come forward reaping blood and havoc. They cause terror, and this is kind of scary, this nice little air corps. Double paladin plus royal hippogriff knights are going to cause me so much problems with my Glade Lady and Double Eagle up in the skies, and with the Fate Enchantress down on the ground with Arcane Conduit, Regrowth, Earthblood, and Awakening Wood. So lovely spells by her, kind of all her items and abilities, but let's get this battle underway. So initially, I'm just going to be redeploying my forces onto the high ground, moving forward as we do so with the Glade Lady, starting to poke and tickle this Paladin, doing some pretty decent damage as well. You can see the Paladin is not having the best of days so far. My opponent's actually trying to juke back and forth, which is really good play on his behalf. Unfortunately for him, the missiles on the Glade Lady do actually track. They're very hard to juke, and even as he darts away last second, he's still getting clobbered, taking quite a lot of work. But there's plenty of healing potential on the field for the Bretonnian forces, so this it's still going to force him to use spells and force him to reach his healing cap a little bit earlier on, but it is worth it. But it's not quite as good as it would be against other factions who lack the healing. Now, I noticed a mistake from my opponent. The Enchantress is trying to pop forward to do some nice damage to my Eternal Guard, and she is way out of position right now. These mounted yeomen can do basically nothing to her eagle, at least quickly, so my plan is to net her, pin her in place with the Great Eagles, and slaughter her before her Hippogriff Knights and front line can get here, and worst comes to worst, we should be able to use our mobility to get into the sky once more and flee whilst getting some nice damage. So, we do net her here. She comes in with the prey. She is unmoving at the moment. Now, the eagle's going to nudge her, which does push her forward, which is fine, and then she just starts to gallop. She just starts absolutely yeeting away from this eagle. So, of course, it's a tiny bit of push animation, which you expect, and then she just keeps going. She just keeps riding, not giving a damn about that great eagle behind her, and all of a sudden, she becomes stuck once more, and she travels quite a fair distance from when she gets hit. I understand being pushed a bit by the eagle, but that net is certainly not doing its job and not pinning in the enemy Enchantress. And at this point, I had to give up the chase. We were simply too close now to the Paladins. The Royal Hippogriff Knights have only just arrived, but it was a far too risky engagement for us to take, as if she would managed to jump her way back here, she could have been very, very easy picking. So we do push forward with our Glade Riders. We're only falling back now, instead moving up with the Glade Guard of Starfire Shafts to counterpunch my opponent where possible, because these Wardens of Montfort and Mounted Yeoman Archers can do decent damage to a lot of my troops. These Glade Riders do have bronze shields, but that's about it. Not much armor on them whatsoever. The Glade Lady is going to be moving forward, just continue to poke and scratch at that Paladin, who's taking considerable damage now, down about a third HP. My opponent's doing some lovely Awakening Wood harass, and up to only 0 kills so far, actually, despite a few casts. But let's see the damage value. Have they been paying off? If we can actually hook on top of you. There you are. 200 damage value. Okay, so nothing crazy so far. We continue to rain shots where possible onto the enemy skirmish cavalry. Glade Riders feinting a push forward before falling back once more. And the Glade Lady's having a fine time. She's up to 3 kills so far, just trying to poke down Paladins where possible. I think my opponent is going to be hiding them now behind the Royal Hippogriff Knights, who are starting to move forward for maybe a key engagement. No, they do feint it and fall back once more. So the Mounted Yeoman Archers just chilling, just vibing. We are focusing them down as much as possible, in particular the Wardens of Montfort. And now we're going to be moving forward and trying to soften up my enemy front line, forcing him to engage his peasant archers, and then hopefully we will be able to outnumber them with our Glade Guard, or at least outskill them and focus fire them down as quickly as possible. Awakening Wood does catch the Glade Guard. They take considerable damage and are going to fall back once more, but it doesn't kill any of the models, which is really good news for me, meaning they still have the same amount of damage output they would have before they took that damage. Glade Guard are going to move forward to engage with the Wardens once more. Tunnel Guard do catch a few of those shots to the flank, which isn't so good. Their shield's been a little less useful. Glade Riders are here just in case my opponent gets a little bit sneaky and moves in for a glorious counterfight. The Glade Guard of Starfire Shafts are now focusing down one unit of Peasant Bowmen. Focus Fire is a very key tool. I might do a video on Focus Fire at some point, because it's something I think a lot of new players need to do. Basically, we're trying to get all our units which are shooting one target together, rather than spreading out the shots, because that's going to mean we can break this unit quicker, and my opponent has less damage output pouring back. So we're going to be switching those shots soon onto the next unit, Peasant Bowmen, just trying to whittle them down. Arrows of Kurnos does go down, once again aimed at that Paladin, who's now down below half HP. We do lose a few shots into the Fey Enchantress. She has really good resistances, though, both to missile and magic attacks. And unfortunately, the Glade Lady does do magic, so a few wasted shots there, but we do switch our targets relatively quickly. Glade Guard do take a load of shots, where we managed to force off yet another unit of Peasant Bowmen, really driving back a lot of this bow fire, and all of a sudden, we outnumber our opponent with the missile units. The Montfort Cavalry, as well as the other Mounted Yeomen, are pushing forward once more. We're going to drive them back with the Glade Riders, all the whilst we're doing damage to them. And up in the skies, we could have a big fight of fights. So we fire a few more shots in, once again aimed at that Paladin. And now the trap is going to be sprung. So we're moving over our Great Eagles to try to get in the engagement. And we actually net down the Royal Hippogriff Knights, keeping them away from the main fight. And now we can turn all our Glade Guard to finish them off. A bit of a misclick. I do actually shoot one of the Paladins for a while. We will be switching that back soon. The Great Eagles do dive in, pecking at the skull of this Paladin, and we do manage to get him down relatively low quite quickly. We pack a massive punch with these Great Eagles on the charge. One Paladin down, one to go, and we're starting to feast on him quite nicely. Royal Hippogriff Knights taking a bucket ton of damage, but still all 6 models are alive, and it looks like that other Paladin is going to go down to the might of the double Great Eagle. Glade Lady, though, has taken considerable damage and needs to fall back as quickly as possible. The Enchantress does yeet into the back line. We counterpunch with the Loic Tricksters and move the Glade Guard away from that wannabe Comet of Cassandora, pouring down. Now, I was very scared at this moment. The Glade Lady had been caught quite a bit. I'm trying to support where possible, but the Paladin has been able to survive, at least for now, and the Glade Lady is actually going to start to get terror routed, which is really bad news for me, as she is relatively close to the edge, given her speed, and there she goes. She gets caught once again. Little miss micro for me, and I keep trying to keep her moving, but she is terrified away, and I'm terrified of losing her right now. So you can see in the front line, Glade Riders as well as Eternal Guard doing absolutely fine in the front line. Lurks Tricksters are surrounding the Fey Enchantress, doing some decent damage, but my micro is really letting me down. I'm allowing Mounted Yeoman to just wander into the back line, and the reason for this is I was madly trying to micro over here, chase off this Paladin, get him off the board whilst keeping the Glade Lady alive so that I could assist with the Great Eagles. It was a little bit of a micro nightmare, but we are going to be able to force off that Paladin, which is good news for us. And in the main fight, Eternal Guard, they're just going to abandon these Glade Guard behind them and start pushing forward to try to force off enemy skirmish cavalry. We do have a bit of a wizard duel. Spellslinger of Life is going after the Fey Enchantress right now. There's a lot of filthy peasant missile support, and it does look like the Spellslinger may be paying with this with her life, which is really bad news. Lurks Trickster's doing a good job, though, pulling apart the men-at-arms with the help of the Eternal Guard. So up in the skies, we are able to force off that Paladin, come in with a beautiful Praevenarth Rainbow, which this time is working perfectly, followed up by an Arrows of Kurnos and Eagles descending from all directions, one on each flank, and then the Glade Lady taking the enemy head on. And this is a lot of armor pressure coming in by all these Eagles. Yes, Royal Hippogriff Knights are very elite and very powerful, but triple single entity is always very scary. You can see a few of the carcasses falling down of those Hippogriffs. We've broken them, and we will easily and comfortably be able to chase them off the battlefield. The Great Eagle's speed is such a good tool. In the main fight, the Spellslinger has come back, popped an Earthblood on herself to keep her going. Eternal Guard are dragging down a lot of the cavalry, has found itself in combat, trying to shut down some Glade Guard, no doubt. The Eternal Guard are starting to waver a little bit, but along the line, we are starting to hold a little bit, and I am pushing through now into the enemy back line. Loic Tricksters are very, very quick with that 46 speed, bound and leap elegantly into the Peasant Bowmen, decapitating heads and singing wonderful songs. The Spellslinger of Life is doing some decent damage to the Peasant Bowmen, and we've got 3 units routing right now, which is really good for me. I can now use 1 unit of Eternal Guard to usher 3 units off the battlefield. Lurks Tricksters are going to be jumping on the Peasant Bowmen. Unfortunately, there was a lot of crossfire coming in. Good play by my opponent, killing one of my favourite units in a really brutal style of approach there. The second wannabe Comet of Cassandora does come down. I do manage to dodge this with the Eternal Guard before engaging once more. Eternal Guard will be decent up against the Fey Enchantress. She doesn't have much armor, and of course she is a large threat on our horse, so that bonus versus large or anti-large is going to help quite a bit. Mounted Yeomen are being used rather effectively, bouncing between combats, breaking up a lot of my infantry troops. You can see they helped assist the slaughter of the Eternal Guard, and move over to the second unit as well. Even the rounded Mountain Yeomen are just advancing in a different direction and moving towards the enemy. Great Eagles, as well as the Glade Lady, are on the warpath back, though, and bounce power is relatively heavy in my favour, though we do lose the War Dancers. They're running away to lick their wounds. Only 14 models left, so they're probably going to shatter relatively quickly. Spellslinger Life is escorting some Peasant Bowmen off the field, and likewise the Eternal Guard still forcing off 3 units. It's such good work here. Arrows of Kurnos does get birthed into the world and pour down mighty eldritch fire upon the Fey Enchantress, who I didn't like that too much despite her resistances, and I don't care that she's surrounded by her loyal troops. I'm coming for blood. I'm still annoyed at her ability to juke my net earlier on, so all the Eagles land, slaughter her, and fall back to get up in the sky once more. Balance of power is moving more heavily and heavily in my favour, and it's only really a matter of time before the Bretonnian forces do fall. Some good pressure did come in onto my archers in the late stages of the game as they started to rally, but my opponent tipped his hat and bowed out gracefully. Well played, though. It was a super good fun game, so well played to Gert Fenrir. I'm not sure what the G's in for. Maybe it's just a gangster version of Fenrir. But yeah, Fenrir is a very cool wolf, by the way. It's one of the children of Loki, a gigantic wolf. You may have seen it in one of the Marvel movies, if you're into those as well, in the Thor Ragnarok, I believe, but it's got a bigger meaning in kind of Norse mythology and stuff, and it's a very cool name, so appreciate a good name and a talented player coming in with a Bretonnia 20 stack, no less. 20 stacks very popular these days, I can certainly see the appeal coming up against Wood Elves, who are expecting all this heavy cav, and you just mix it up. Go over a load of peasants instead, swarm the enemy, and bring 1 or 2 heavy hitters in the form of the Royal Hippogriff Knights, who got 0 kills, unfortunately. And of course, Fey Double Paladin. Very meta, very standard, very powerful stuff. But well played to my opponent. I think got some decent damage dealt and damage value across the board from both of our forces, and we'll delve into all of that in just a second. But if you guys enjoy this video, make sure to leave a thumbs up, subscribe, and comment down below what you thought of the battle. Apologies again for my voice, probably been a little bit lower than usual and not quite so energetic. Again, my one of my housemates is trying to sleep next door, so I don't want to be too loud and wake them up. And I've got a busy schedule tomorrow, so this has actually been recorded the night before in advance, and it's currently about 1:45 in the morning, so I should wrap this up and get going. But before I do that, loads of links down below in the description to my Twitch, Discord, all that kind of good stuff. And let's delve into the damage dealt and damage value quickly. So the Glade Lady, 1,652 damage value. Beautiful work by her. Certainly not too bad whatsoever. Her praise are really useful as well when they do work. It was kind of interesting. So when I hit the Fae, she kind of grinds along the floor, which you expect. But then she just kept going and going and going. And I think maybe the hit animation broke the net, maybe. I have heard other people say that this net, of all the nets, is still a little bit buggy. The other ones seem to be a bit more fine, but the Prevanov Raymer seems to sometimes work, sometimes not. So that could be a little bit of a problem. But we're wrapping up Total Warhammer 2 soon and going on to 3, so I don't think it's going to be a problem for too long. Spellslinger of Life, 69 kills. She was having an absolutely great time today. 1,000 damage value is pretty nice. I think I dropped 1 Dwellers at one point on some skirmish cav, but she also went toe-to-toe the Fey Enchantress, which didn't go too well for her, but she won the war, so who cares. Tunnel Guard did a decent job. I mean, not much damage value across the board from any of them, the highlights being 715, but decent kills, just held the peasants at bay and allowed the rest of my build to really dish out the paint. Lurks Tricksters, I just love them so much, they're very cool. 75 kills, 1,252 damage value, lovely work. As for the Glade Guard of Starfire Shaft, we've got 29, 34, 24 and 39 kills, 490 damage value, 670, 749 and 1,331, so they just kept getting better and better, and honestly they did a decent job keeping my opponent at bay, trading effectively up against the Peasant Bowmen due to our better accuracy, and we could kind of move and shoot and kite a little bit more effectively. They did a good job, though I did let them get killed rather early on due to my panic of trying to protect my Glade Lady. The Glade Riders didn't do too much, 0 value and 192, just used to plug gaps where possible. And the Great Eagles, this is initially what this video was going to be about before I realised the whole net situation. Well, I noticed the net mid-battle, but I was like, oh, maybe I should do this video about the Eagles, because I think they're one of the most underappreciated and underrated single entity monsters in the game. They're very swift, they still pack a punch, they're no manticore, but they don't rampage, and they've certainly got a lot of things going well for them. 607 damage value and 1,022 now. They're not going to hit as hard. I don't think they're quite as good as character assassins or monster assassins, for example, but they work really well if you want to bring a lord who's going to kite and shoot. So Sisters of Twilight or a Glade Lady, they can support them really nicely due to how swift they are and how they can still fight pretty good up in the air. As for Fenrir's forces today, the Fey Enchantress, 1,432 damage value, always a deadly character to have on the field, and the Paladins, 288 and 819 damage value. The more and more I see Paladins, the less impressed I am with them. I really don't think they're all that. They're relatively squishy, and if you are going to bring double Paladins, I would normally have them on the same mount you're going to bring Fae. So if you've got Fae on foot, bring the Paladins on foot. If you've got her on horse, bring them on horseback. Though they could have done some nice work up in the skies. Unfortunately for them, the Eagles wanted to feast. The men-at-arms did okay across the board, nothing too crazy. To be honest, it just absorbs a lot of damage. Peasant Bowman, 966 damage value, 352, 738, 528, and 382. So not quite as good as my Glade Guard, but hey, they're cheaper, and we can always find more peasants. Likewise, the cavalry were a bit of a mixed bag. Some of them doing pretty terrible, getting basically no damage value. Other ones are over 100 kills and 835 damage value. Really good stuff. Now, the Royal Hippogriff Knights suffered, unfortunately, simply just due to my composition on my build, but nonetheless got 365 value, which, you know, could be worse. The Mounted Yeoman suffered 269 damage value, 711 and 478. Not terrible, but not great either. Hope you guys enjoyed this one. Until next time, peace, peace. And as always, stay forth.